Is this the kind of thing that has to come from government?
People that have been in it for a long time, very passionate about what we're doing, have kind of just gone, do you know what, government, whoever you are, you're all just not getting it done. We're just going to get it done. Does anyone really believe that any new building going up, whether it be a home or a warehouse or a commercial building, should be being built without solar on its roof? I mean, that's nonsense, surely.
Hello and welcome to Positive Energy, powered by the Eco Experts. I'm your host, Chris Hambling, and I'm joined by my co-host, Roland Ellison, the editor of the Eco Experts.
Hello.
Today we're joined by Claire Gardner and we're looking at solar inverters, asking questions like what is a solar inverter and how do they work, but also looking at the gender imbalance in the solar industry and how to make solar marketing more inclusive. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
To get things started then, could you tell us a little bit about your role in the solar industry and kind of how you got into the solar industry as well?
Yeah, sure. So solar industry, I got into about 12 years ago, and it was purely out of a conversation at my kids' nursery. It wasn't an industry I was looking to jump into necessarily, but I was looking to go back to work. So I ended up just falling into it really, working for a UK distributor of solar equipment and haven't looked back. So it's a bit of a bug, and I think there's lots of people in it that can't imagine leaving it.
Right. Yeah.
So what were you doing before you were working in?
I was much more kind of consumer marketing, FMCG. I was working for big kind of food companies, retail companies, and then I had a break to have kids. Kind of wanted to stay in marketing, but didn't really, have a plan. So I'd say it was kind of by accident, really.
And how has it kind of been different from that experience working in marketing in FMCG and then coming into the solar and renewable space? Have you noticed any differences in the industry or?
Yeah, I mean, it's different because I came from a B2C world, and the marketing I was doing initially was, purely B2B. I guess what's really interesting now is that the solar industry is, even in the time I've been in it, it's evolved again, and consumers are much more aware of solar. At the time, it was purely B2B. It's, it's a bit like your fuse board at home. You wouldn't care or know probably what brand of that is. But these days with solar and energy crisis and everything, people just as consumers are much more aware of solar and energy. So it's morphing towards a kind of messaging to consumers as well as, businesses and trades and installers.
I guess, that's leads me on to a good question of like how much has the solar industry changed in the time that you've been in it? Because you kind of touched upon it there, that it seems like to me as well, when you drive through like any village in the UK, like every other house will have a solar panel on it. And I feel like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that wasn't really the case. So from your experience, how much has the industry changed in that time, would you say? Yeah,
it's changed a lot. I mean, when I started, we were still in a place where there was incentives and tariffs. So as a homeowner, you could get what was called the feed-in tariff. So you would install solar and then you get a certain amount of money back for what you export. That's now all gone. So you're installing solar because you're looking to save money on your energy bills. And obviously, like you say, 3 or 4 years ago, we hit COVID, we hit energy crisis, we hit cost of living and the Ukraine-Russia situation, and energy prices just rocketed. So it became much more, front and center for homeowners that how can I save money? And every part of their life was being looked at, and energy was obviously a huge part of, everyday costs. So solar is, if people were kind of teetering on the edge of shall we, shan't we, a lot of people went, let's definitely do it. Some people, had, got some disposable income or a bit of savings. They chose then to spend that and invest it in solar. And the other thing that's happened is that in that time, the cost of the components have come down. It's still an investment, of course it is, but it's not costing you as much, as it once used to. And the technology has moved on and everything's much more efficient, as it will continue to evolve like any technology.
And your payback, I guess, becomes shorter because there's been less of an outlay.
Definitely. And technology, phones, TVs, computers, everything, it just moves quickly. And we didn't have battery storage, when I first started out in the industry. That's a huge part of it now at each end of this, the spectrum, the solar spectrum, because at utility scale, the grids across Europe, especially in the UK, need to look at solar storage and energy storage, as well as, as a homeowner, you can have a system with batteries. So anything that so on a day like today, it's particularly sunny, you're going to be, most people, producing more than you can use during the day. So my system at home has got a nice full battery at the moment that, when the sun goes down later, I can then use to power some of my loads at home.
So that's interesting. You've got panels yourself at home.
Yes.
What sort of setup are you rocking then in your?
I'm rocking. Yeah. So I do have a Solis inverter, of course.
Of course. Might have got a discount. Don't know.
Couldn't possibly say. I said I make trips up to the test lab every now and again. So there's different types of solar panels as well. So people might have seen.
Yes.
So on new build houses, on new developments, you might see what are called in-roof panels. So they sit within the tiles, versus the ones that are retrofitted quite often are on rails that sit on the roof. So that's the kind of difference in the panels. We were getting some work done on the house. So our roof was being done and worked on. So I actually got in-roof panels. And again, whereas 10 years ago, those panels would probably be like maybe 250 watts, they're 400 watt panels now. So as a system, you can generate a lot more energy from the same amount of panels than you could that many years ago. Right. So I've got just under 4 kilowatt system with a Solis inverter and a battery, a Pylon branded battery. You can have different ones. There's different systems that work in pretty much the same way, just different brands doing different things.
I guess that's quite a nice segue onto inverters themselves then, because I guess again, just coming from someone who doesn't have solar panels, but I know my parents do. In my mind, it's just like the solar panel is the product. Obviously, you can also benefit from having a battery, but what is the inverter then, and how does that work, and how is it essential to a homeowner, basically? Yeah.
I mean, bear with me because I will skim the surface of the technicalities.
Of course.
And my colleagues will always say that I'm the one that asks the stupid questions.
Right.
So tell me why I should care. Yeah. So basically, your inverter is it's the brain of the system. So it converts the DC power, the DC current, which the D stands in my mind for dangerous. Don't go near that. So that's what your panels are producing. Your inverter converts it into the AC power that your home uses. So it's the power in your system. So it's basically converting it into usable energy for the home.
And where does that typically kind of sit in the house then? Is that something that can just go in some storage outside essentially, or?
Mine's in my garage. Inverters, most inverters, and certainly our inverters are, they're weather resistant. They're tested to be, you can site them outside or whatever, but actually it's batteries that like to have much more consistent temperatures. So, but just because of the nature of homes and houses and a lot of buildings in the UK, a lot of systems are placed in attic space. But again, as long as you've got consistent kind of temperatures and conditions for the system, that's absolutely fine.
Is that then because you want to keep the DC current kind of outside of the home as much as possible? Because you said
it's just kind of convenience, really. And again, for space in the home, most people want things, again, think about your fuse box.
Out the way.
You don't necessarily need to access it regularly.
Yeah.
With all of our systems now, I guess the big thing to mention is you can look at it online. These systems are connected to the internet. So I could go on my phone now and look at what my system's producing, what's in the battery, what the panels are generating right now. So you don't need to go to the actual inverter. You can just look at everything on your phone.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where it is. Like I say, mine's in the garage, but I rarely go and look at it or need to. It's just out the way.
My parents love looking at the app.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to shout at my parents every 5 minutes, but...
No, well, my mum's partner as well has got the app, and he's got a battery and he's got an electric car, and he's got the whole thing, and so he's very proud. He's very proud to show you all the bits.
I'd be checking it every 5 minutes to see how much money I'm saving, basically. I feel like. I suppose when a homeowner is thinking of getting solar panels, then is the inverter part of the cost, or is it kind of separate to the cost of the panels themselves? Is it the kind of thing that, I'm getting solar panels, and then I also have to buy an inverter?
It is a separate cost, but I guess the important thing is that the homeowner isn't going to do this themselves. So like any kind of, electrics, plumbing, whatever, you go to who your local, well-trusted, probably recommended. I think most of us like to use trades that are recommended by people that or have used before. So you're going to use an installer that is going to recommend the best system for you based on your roof space, based on your consumption. So if you want a system that's got batteries, then your installer will work with you to look at your energy consumption, to know what system is going to best meet your needs. And then they'll put a cost together, which will include the panels, the inverter, all the relevant meters that you might need to go along with that.
So you sort of touched upon it a little bit there then. There are different types of inverters.
Yeah.
Is it the case that like one inverter can handle more energy than the other, or what are the differences between them?
It's really the amount of panels and how much, so take again a small roof that might have 6 panels on, or like mine. So it's your average system in the UK homeowner system is 4 kilowatts. That's just the majority of systems. It stems back to when the feed-in tariff was around, and it was kind of like systems that were under that would get a certain amount all the way. So your inverter then matches the generation of the panels and the capacity of the panels. So I've got a 3 kilowatt inverter. A big field system will have maybe a bank of 100 kilowatt inverters or 250 kilowatt inverters that will make up megawatt systems. So your inverter matches the capacity and the generation size of your panels, basically.
So you mentioned the feed-in tariff. I think that went out in sort of 2016.
Yeah.
And then there was like a gap, wasn't there?
Yes.
That's before they brought in the smart energy, smart export
energy
guarantee, which presumably you managed to benefit from, or most homeowners do. I think it's under 5 kilowatts.
Yeah, it's
Well, actually, it's not. Maybe it's much bigger than that.
It kind of it relates to obviously what you export. It's not as generous as the old feed-in tariff.
No,
you're still these days, again, because of energy prices, it still makes a lot of sense to try and factor in batteries into your system. If you can do that, you're going to be much better off storing as much as you can. And we joked a minute ago about kind of like looking at apps and things like that. I was only laughing last night because I get into bed and I look at my energy prices for the next day, and I'm looking at when I'm going to set my time charging for my battery. So between 2 and 5 a.m. this morning, my battery was charging because that was my cheapest rates.
So it's charging from the grid.
From the grid.
While it's not charging from that, right?
Yeah. So it was full already this morning. So, before the sun came up and the kettle was on or whatever, it was using the energy from the battery.
So is that the kind of thing that you manually have to like enable, or does it just happen automatically?
There are tariffs that will do it automatically for you.
Right.
Not every product and every system and every brand of inverter will kind of like work with that, but different utility companies, the likes of, depending on who you get your electricity from. So the Octopuses, the OVOs, the British Gas, that kind of thing. They all have various different tariffs now that will manage it for you. I like doing it myself.
And so with your system, you've got a 4K system, you've got a battery as well. I don't want to ask like how much you're paying to the grid each month, but like what sort of percentage saving are you seeing, or how much have you seen your electricity bills reduced by since you had that system set up? I mean, has it been
Just to take a snapshot, there was a couple of days last week where during the day I wasn't spending any money on energy because I could see that my system was producing. There was energy going back to the grid. There was energy going into my battery and energy going into my home. So it was like the perfect scenario. So in that situation, I'm spending nothing. I'm using energy and I've got things on in the home, but that was costing me nothing because the panels were doing all the work and I was filling my battery at the same time. So there are times when, if everything's working as it should do, it will be making you money. And that's where we're going back to the kind of the payback period with all of these smart tariffs and the utilities really getting their game together to actually help homeowners with this. It's getting easier to actually go solar, if you like.
So now you're on that sort of path to electrification.
Yeah.
Have you got a sort of wish list of any other things that you might change in your home, like an EV or a heat pump or anything, or wind turbine? I mean, is there anything else?
Where's it end? Yeah.
Yeah, where's it end?
Yeah. Well, a heat pump, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's, again, going back to the inverter and all these different types of technologies, and you obviously touched on it, with parents and things like that. It's all of these technologies are are having to work together, and they need to work together. So yeah, heat pump is an obvious next one. We had some work done on the house, and whereas years ago we wouldn't have gone near it, we put electric underfloor heating in, because it's like, actually that would have once upon a time cost an absolute fortune to run, but it's, you know, with solar and being able to generate and run it through that made a lot more sense. It does make you think differently, for sure.
So looking ahead then, having been in the industry for 12 years, like what kind of things excite you about what's to come in the solar industry as well? Because we're obviously at this point where homeowners are getting them left, right and center. Where does it go from here, basically?
Where does it go? Do you know what? It's the software side that excites me. The white boxes, as I affectionately call them, the hardware is it's there, it's well tested, it's well proven. A lot of the exciting development is in software, and what that delivers. So what you might call microgrids and, you know, energy trading, grid balancing, all these phrases that, again, when you know, the UK is one market, and then you look at somewhere like the Nordics and in Sweden, where they're already, you know, looking at software, and there's companies there that integrate, you know, big solar systems that help to balance the grid, and the grid's almost operating and controlling some of those systems to manage the energy usage on a whole. So we're almost going to become mini utilities, because all of these systems are connected and online, and I think that's super exciting.
Yeah, so we visited the Solar and Storage Live Expo at the Excel Centre, and there was a couple of people giving talks there about, you know, having small communities that were kind of all hooked up to a sort of low carbon grid. But then there was also people talking about looking at having like smart homes on a very consumer based level, where you kind of have like an app that hooks up your heat pump, your solar panel, all of your electronics. So that way you're fully like optimizing your home and having like a smart home effectively. So I guess you're kind of already halfway there with having an app and utilizing your usage. But yeah, it would almost be really interesting if in the next 5 years we have these like smart energy independent homes. Do you think that's kind of where it's heading essentially?
100%. Yeah. I'm sure of it. And there are certain areas that have got these kind of like community solar projects where it's exactly that. You know, a whole community will have kind of worked together almost like a co-op to invest in solar around there, and it becomes that little mini grid. And yeah, different times of the day, oh, my battery's full, but the neighbour across the road needs some energy, so actually it's pulling from your battery, and it's just
so
the way it begins to work.
Stabilising the grid all times. I mean, obviously there's a bit of work to do on the grid generally.
The grid, less the grid.
The grid in capital letters.
Whereas I think, you know, so there's some areas of the country where it's quite hard to get a solar project, particularly big solar projects off the ground, because the grid can't accept power from it. Or
that's true. Yeah. So take the Southwest. It naturally was where a lot of the first sort of solar systems came in, and that's really kind of, where you look down there, it's pretty much full. The grid is at capacity.
Right.
So what you have now, so we have a product which is basically called an export power manager. So that comes into play. So big companies, whether, you know, warehouses, commercial systems that might want 150 kilowatts on their roof, but the grid will go, I can't take that. You can only export 40.
Right.
But actually what export power management allows that company to do is still have 150 kilowatts installed so that they can use it. But the export power manager will restrict what gets exported. So there's kind of certificates that the DNOs, the network operators, will accept to say, okay, that's fine then. Yeah, as long as you're not going to throw 120 kilowatts at us.
Right.
That's fine, as long as you're only ever going to be exporting 40 or whatever they agree is the limit. So yeah, there's ways around that, so that businesses can still invest, because that's what we're seeing now, is that, you know, businesses are investing in solar a lot, a lot more kind of like easier now. It's, you know, finance on it is easier. It makes for a simpler investment for big business to do that.
And so when the grid does get upgraded, then they will be able to export to it further down the line.
Or storage comes along, and that grid part of the network has got a storage solution that system can then perhaps divert into the battery systems that are there, because suddenly, there's all these systems that are online, but the capacity that's going back to the grid is nothing like what the available capacity is.
Is this the kind of thing then that when we're talking about like the future of solar and the future of like communities, is this the kind of thing that has to come from government change and involvement? Because at time of recording, we have a general election on the horizon. So do you think, it's the kind of thing that needs the support from government, or do you think it's the kind of thing that will happen independently over time before the government kind of catches on and thinks this is something we should look into?
Both needs to happen. And I'm really proud to kind of be in this industry where people within it generally now have kind of been in it there's people that have been in it for a long time, very passionate about what we're doing, and have kind of just gone, do you know what, government, whoever you are, whatever colour you are, you're all just not getting it done. We're just going to get it done. And that's where I think you see, like say, businesses are still seeing the benefit of getting it done. But it absolutely needs government to support it and drive it, because does anyone really believe that any new building going up, whether it be a home or a warehouse or a commercial building, should be being built without solar on its roof? I mean, that's nonsense, surely. The EU have now, they've got rules where any new commercial building must have solar on its roof.
Right.
The Scottish government is a bit further ahead than the rest of the UK government, main central government. Certainly on new build houses, there's kind of more policy in place there to encourage solar on new builds. But it needs to come both ways. The industry and the companies within it, and the trade association, or the industry association, Solar Energy UK, are kind of really driving and pushing government to do that. But I go to the working group meetings there, and there's just one huge desire in the room that everyone's just kind of just getting it done.
Yeah.
So Claire, after having worked in solar for 12 years now, I don't know how it was like when you first came, as a female working in an industry which is quite traditionally, lots of installers, electricians, I guess, kind of blokes. How has that been? And have you seen sort of any changes to that? And how can the industry basically appeal to decision makers who may be female and male at the same time? Got any thoughts on that?
You're right. It is dominated by men across the industry, and certainly in those more obvious male roles of old, like the electricians, the engineers. I'm incredibly lucky that I work with at Solis some fantastic female engineers in our team. I feel like we've got actually a really lovely balance, but across the industry, it's almost invisible as an industry, because almost like we touched on earlier, people see the solar panels and think electrician and naturally think probably men. There's so much more to the industry than just that. We've run some careers fairs recently to try and do just that and just raise the profile of the industry as a whole. It's electricians, it's lawyers, it's bankers, it's planners, it's civil engineers, it's marketing, it's sales, all these different career options as an industry that we just need to start making visible, because until it's visible to the future workforce, then it's like anything, unless you kind of see yourself in it, because you've seen someone else that you can relate to working in it, it's difficult to kind of move it forward. But it is moving forward, and that might naturally let me introduce our Women in Solar network.
Yes.
So myself and a few people from the solar industry across Europe have basically kind of launched the Women in Solar Europe network, and our whole mission is to really drive diversity and balance. Balance is a key thing for me, because I don't care whether you're male or female, green or blue or whatever. Are you just the best person for the job? Unfortunately, at the minute, the majority of people in the jobs are male, and especially in those leadership roles. And that's the key thing, to try and find some balance to those leadership roles, so that actually, the industry starts to benefit from a broader breadth of experience. And there's so much research done now that proves if you as a company have a good, diverse, balanced workforce leadership as well, then your profit's going to increase. The stats are there.
Yeah. Well, I think, we were looking at the Women in Solar website, weren't we? And it's like 17% of senior management positions in solar are women. So there's obviously like quite a lot of
there's a lot of work to do. Yeah, definitely. And solar as a sector within energy, we are further ahead than say oil and gas, for example, which is just obviously again much more of it's anchored in those older traditional roles. So as a workforce, it's older. We are a infant industry compared to that. So naturally, it's perhaps a bit more forward thinking. But we're a network that's really, really growing. And the idea is that, we begin to become a mentoring program. It's really about career development. And, if you're in the industry, how can we help each other and support each other to actually drive our own development? So, we're working across lots of different countries across Europe to actually pull people together. So I'm, talking to people in, Romania or Poland or all sorts of different countries, and we'll all actually get together again in Munich in a couple of weeks' time for the trade show that's there. So we've got another workshop planned where there'll be about 50 of us, and we'll lead some tables of discussion about how we can take it forward and support each other. And we need businesses on board with it, and it's not a, no men allowed. This is, there's kind of a sub-sector, sub-network, if you like, which is we just
allies
have... So we have kind of like the women-only workshops because we're sharing experiences, but equally as a broader network and as a broader initiative, we need male voices. And we've got some fantastic people in it already who are absolutely on board with why this is needed and why we need to do this.
So how long has the network been running?
We launched it last year at Intersolar, actually. Really new. So we launched it last year in June at Intersolar, and we had our first get together then. So we're kind of having our birthday get together in a couple of weeks' time again in Munich. So it's grown at pace. There's one particular person, Carmen, who's kind of doing loads of work in the background, and she's just pushing the likes of me to do things like this.
No, well, she's very passionate, so it's great.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it's great to have a voice. So thank you for having me on and giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
Well, I think it also speaks to how the industry appeals to consumers, because I think traditionally, I don't know how it works in different people's houses, but the decision maker on certain things in households might be male, might be female. It depends. In my house, if it's anything to do with finance, then it's my wife. I'm completely hopeless with that kind of stuff. But then if it's like, emptying the cat litter or taking out rubbish, then she'll come to me. Do you think there's a job to do in terms of marketers about how you communicate to consumers and business about getting solar installed?
Definitely. And what you just sort of touched on there is just this week, I received an email, inviting me to look at the prospect of getting solar installed. It was a company that I get some things through at home. I click on the link, and the banner at the top is probably a mid-50s, maybe 60-year-old man. And it's like, well, you've lost me already because you're clearly not talking to me. And that assumption that was the right image to put at the top of the page is just, it feels so out of date. Even to a modern male looking at that, it was just the wrong message completely. Basic things like that. Just
how do you think it would be different to sell to a female rather than a male, or what would be, because often when you're having a conversation with a tradesperson, for example, I think women often feel very kind of intimidated or kind of patronized by that situation of just dismissing questions and things like that. What could you do to improve that situation and make it more accessible for people, or is there a sort of way in which you can present things that would be more open and inclusive?
There's a lot to do around just cutting through the technology. I like to answer the so what. It really, when it comes down to marketing and what I do, that is what marketing is all about. It will tell whoever you're trying to sell to, tell them why they should care. So what? Answer me that. Don't come to my door, figuratively speaking. Just with loads of technical jargon. Just talk to me as to how is this going to change my day-to-day life? Actually, just randomly, I had a window cleaner come to my door the other day, and I had actually invited him, but his email had gone to spam, so I didn't realise he was actually coming at that moment. But either way, I'd instigated it, a little local company. And he had ID, he was very friendly. It was just a really pleasant engagement.
Yeah.
He wasn't there to sell, obviously, because I said he wasn't a cold call, but equally he was recognised. He was, he had to kind of present himself, with ID and who he was, and you sent a message through the website. It's like, oh, right, lovely. And so even just at that level, it's like, just doesn't matter what you do, what industry you're doing, what job you're doing, just don't make assumptions that it's not appropriate to do anymore. It's a different world we live in.
I think my parents had shout out my parents. My parents had a similar experience when they were getting their solar panels installed. I think they had 3 or 4 people come around to give them a quote. And it was very much it was less about who was giving them the best deal.
Yeah.
And it was more to do with who was actually listening to their questions, who was actually answering them, who was trying to work with my parents, and they had their best interests in mind. And they said that they had someone that came along and just was outright you need this many panels on this roof, and kind of didn't really budge on, alternate options or, how it'd be different if it was this many panels or that many panels. And instead, I think the one they went with was someone who opened up some spreadsheets and showed them how much, their usage would be different and their savings would be different, and actually listened to my parents when they were asking, well, how would it differ if we had 10 panels as opposed to 20? And it was just more of a conversation rather than some guy just wants to get as many panels on our roof as possible because he wants the most money from us, basically.
Yeah, it's having that mutual respect, I think, and going back to, you said they had 3 or 4 quotes. I mean, always do that.
Yeah.
Don't ever fall for something you've seen on social media that looks like a great deal, because guess what? If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. In the days of the feed-in tariff, there was a lot of companies like that were selling solar just based on the fact that, the homeowner could get some money back every month or every 6 months, whatever, based on the feed-in tariff. And thankfully, the industry has shaken off a lot of those companies because, again, going back to the people that are here and in it and selling it are installing it and selling it because they believe in it for the right reasons. There's a lot of really good quality companies out there. So it's get those 3 or 4 people that, are local to you.
Yeah.
If it's a national company, well, make sure you're using a local branch and use recommendations, speak to people.
It's like you said, yeah.
You don't have to go far now to see someone in your town or your street or your village that's got solar panels. Go knock on their door.
Yeah.
I'm that kind of person anyway. And actually, one of my neighbours did it to me and then said, I've seen your solar panels. This is before they were connected. And I was like, oh, well, they're not actually doing anything at the minute. They're just sat there. Which, in my house, my husband kept saying, when are they going to actually do something? Because they're on our roof.
Yeah.
When do they start paying back?
Right, well, I think that just about covers everything. Claire, you've been wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks very much. Yeah, and good luck with the Munich trip with Women in Solar. Sounds great.
Thank you very much.
If you have a question about solar panels, heat pumps, double glazing, EPC ratings, or even charging your EV at home, then get in touch with us and maybe we can discuss it next time on Positive Energy.
All you need to do is contact us via the EcoExpert social channels on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, or you can email us at info@theecoexperts.co.uk.
Please like and subscribe to Positive Energy wherever you're watching or listening, and we'll see you next time.